All right, live again from the NFL Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis. And my hotel is literally right across the street from what they call the Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and that is where the Indiana Pacers play. And the Indiana Pacers' best player is a big Brock Purdy fan. That's Tyrese Halliburton. These two went to Iowa State together, so I decided to just cross the street today. The Pacers were playing the Pelicans. I wanted to go see what Halliburton had to offer. I never been to the arena, never seen a Pacers game in person, never seen Halliburton play in person, but put on quite a show, including this assist from Halliburton to this dunk. Now time was running down at the end of the first quarter, and as you'll see, we'll get to the replay here in a second. Time was running down. They're going to play it up on the big board. Halliburton decided to go with the lob off of the glass, and his teammate threw it down for the dunk. It turns out that just like his friend Brock Purdy, there's Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton is a good passer. He had a lot of assists today. The Pacers did beat the New Orleans Pelicans. They won by 9. I believe it was 123-114. Cool atmosphere. They designed the place like the old basketball field houses in the state of Indiana that house so many high school and college games. Here you're going to have a look at that dunk. I know that you saw it and the assist, obviously, off the backboard. I mean, it took some guts to do this with just a second left in the first quarter. But Tyrese Halliburton was ready to spread the love, spread the wealth, didn't need the points all for himself. That was what happened. One more time with sound here from Indianapolis. Cool stuff. There he is, Tyrese Halliburton. Passing just like Brock Purdy. Halliburton, he's one of the rising stars in the NBA. All-star the past 2 years. And he and Brock Purdy got to know each other as freshmen at Iowa State before Halliburton was actually drafted by the Sacramento Kings, but the Kings traded him here at Indianapolis to the Indiana Pacers. But they rode the bus together at Iowa State from their dorm area all the way to the athletic area. Hopefully I can make it out to Iowa State at some point soon to check out where all this happened. And they had a class, at least one class. It might have been an accounting class together. Tim Kawakami actually wrote a really nice piece about that in The Athletic. And lately, Halliburton has shown his support for Brock Purdy by wearing a 49ers jersey to Pacers games. And it looks like he was even continuing to wear it after the game started, whenever this was, because I guess Halliburton was hurt. One crazy piece of alignment is that Halliburton actually was in the Bay Area, last in the Bay Area, for a Pacers game last season when Brock Purdy took the day after Brock Purdy took over as the starter after Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt against the Miami Dolphins. Halliburton happened to be in the Bay Area for a game, but I guess that he was hurt. And maybe in the past couple months, he's been back out in the Bay Area. I don't know. I haven't been following the Warriors schedule closely enough. But this was when Tim wrote the article in December. He said the last time that Halliburton had been in the Bay Area with the Pacers was right after Purdy took over as starter. So cool bond. Couple guys who were riding the bus at Iowa State. Couple really humble guys in college at a place not really known for pumping out big-time pro talent. They're two of the biggest stars in the NFL and the NBA, respectively, and Brock Purdy and Tyrese Halliburton. And I got to see Halliburton play today here in Indiana. Brock Purdy is not here. He was here a couple of years ago at the NFL Combine. Meanwhile, have also been sticking to the football coverage. We can flip over to here. John Lynch's NFL Combine lesson in perspective. So John has been wandering the hallways here in Indianapolis. It's that convention center setup. You may have seen one of my other videos that I'm doing from all the tunnels here in Indy, which have come in handy today because the weather that I was talking about at 70 degrees has just dropped 40 degrees. There was a tornado warning last night. It's like 25 degrees outside all of a sudden. So it's brutal here. It's wintry conditions again in Indianapolis. So it's good that you could walk inside from hotel to convention center and vice versa. And John Lynch has been getting his work done here at the Combine. But based on what he told me, people are offering him congratulations for the fact that the 49ers went so far this season. But Lynch It stung every single time that he's been offered those congratulations. He's responded by saying, well, I wish that we would have won that last game because losing that last game really stings. And he got some perspective at the combine, and I wrote about it in the piece, and you can go ahead and check this out. It's up on The Athletic right now. Lynch's quote, "It's tough to run into people here who say, 'Great year.' You almost sound like a whiner when you say, 'Man, it's hard to lose that last game.'" That had been Lynch's standard answer throughout the day, up until it generated a response that startled him. "Well, would you have preferred to have lost the previous game?" So that's the question for 49ers fans too. John Lynch definitely would have rather have been in the Super Bowl than have lost the NFC Championship game or a game before then. I think a lot of 49ers fans will tell you that they would rather not make it to the Super Bowl at all. They can't stomach the level of gut-wrenching defeat in the Super Bowl, and somehow for them it'd be easier if the 49ers lost sooner. But that's how no legitimate competitor thinks. No legitimate competitor wants to be eliminated sooner. You always want to push it all the way to the very limit. And you hope that at least one of these seasons, the very limit is you actually winning the championship at the end of the road. But I think that, when I wrote this piece, John Lynch was talking about a number of different things. And we're talking about right now leadership and the 49ers bid to overcome the devastation of that loss in Super Bowl 58 on top of all those other gut-wrenching losses. Lynch has perspective as a player, and he's reminded of context every single time that he interacts with NFL people here in Indianapolis. For example, on Tuesday, John Lynch had a meeting, one of the NFL meetings, all the coaches and the executives are there. It might have been a rules committee meeting. Who knows what was going on? But he was sitting next to Andy Reid. And that reminded John, holy crap, Andy Reid didn't win a Super Bowl until season number 21 as a head coach in the NFL. In fact, Andy Reid went to 4 straight NFC championship games in the early 2000s as the coach of the Eagles and didn't win a Super Bowl. They lost 3 straight, then they finally won one, and they made it to the Super Bowl, but they lost to Tom Brady. That was the Terrell Owens game that he played on a broken leg in the Super Bowl that Philadelphia lost to New England. But of those 3 NFC championship games that the Eagles lost in a row with Andy Reid as their head coach, the second one came as a loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that was John Lynch. John Lynch played in that game. If you want to increase the perspective here, you could take it up another notch. Lynch, that year when they beat the Eagles, it was 27-10. Speaking of a cold day, it was cold at Veterans Stadium. It was the first time the Buccaneers had won in sub-freezing weather. That came in year 10 of Lynch's career. It led to a Super Bowl. They beat the Raiders 2 weeks after that. They killed the Raiders. That was in much warmer weather in San Diego. But the Super Bowl for John Lynch did not come easy. He had to grind through some really tough early years. Then Tony Dungy took over in Tampa Bay. And then Tampa Bay actually lost in the playoffs twice in a row to the Eagles before they finally broke through the third time against Philadelphia. And that was all part of the stretch where Andy Reid couldn't win. So both Lynch and Andy Reid, who are sitting next to each other in a meeting here at the NFL Combine, both of these guys have won Super Bowls. Lynch as a player and Andy Reid as a coach. They've won Super Bowls after long, long waits. They've had to just keep on pounding the rock. That's what Lynch says. Keep on, and he said he got it from his Tampa Bay teams back in the day. Keep on pounding the rock because eventually it's going to blow. You have to keep the faith, keep the belief, keep pounding. You cannot listen to what fans on Twitter or even the YouTube comment section or Instagram are urging you to do, to trade certain people, cut certain people, give up. Those people aren't competitors. Those are fans, right? True competitors will look at history. And that's why I outline the 49ers and the Cowboys in the 1990s. I brought that up right after the Super Bowl ended, and a lot of people all up in arms. But if you have actually played sports, if you actually understand how professional athletes compete, and if you understand how hard it is to actually win, that only one of these 32 teams is going to get it done every year, then you have to rely and go back and dig into historical context to see teams who have overcome the agony of defeat to reach the thrill of victory. So the 49ers lose 2 straight times to the Cowboys in 1992 and 1993. They break through and they win in 1994. That leads to a Super Bowl. John Lynch enters the league in 1993, then starts losing playoff games over the course of the first decade of his career, 2 in a row to the Eagles. Finally, in 2002, his Tampa Bay Buccaneers break through against the Eagles, and then they end up winning a Super Bowl. The losing end of that Eagles-Bucks game that we talk about between those two teams, Andy Reid was the coach, and Andy Reid lost 3 straight NFC championship games, and then he lost the Super Bowl, so it was 4 years of heartbreak in Philadelphia. Reid did not win a Super Bowl until year 21. And it just so happened that his Super Bowl victory, his breakthrough, came against the 49ers in that 2019 season, Super Bowl 54. So just because Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch in charge of the 49ers have not won a Super Bowl yet, history tells us that that does not in any way mean that they're incapable of winning a Super Bowl. History tells us they need to keep on working, that they're on the right track, and that they need to kick that door down. They need to find a way to make this team better moving forward. New addition to the 49ers defensive coordinator interview list is David Merritt, the Kansas City Chiefs defensive backs coach right now. And, you know, you speak about getting better. If you're the 49ers, you want to make sure that you leverage this defensive coordinator interview process to be as informational as possible. And David Merritt, somebody who's won Super Bowls, multiple Super Bowls. He was the DB coach for Steve Spagnuolo back in 2007 when the New York Giants upset the 18-0 New England Patriots. Spagnuolo wasn't around for the next one in 2011 where the Giants beat the Patriots again, but David Merritt was, again, still the defensive backs coach for the Giants then. Merritt's been the DB coach for Kansas City for both of their 2 Super Bowl wins over the 49ers and all 3 of Kansas City's Super Bowl wins under Andy Reid. So 5 Super Bowls for David Merritt. Even if you don't plan on hiring this guy, even if you think that, okay, this is not a full philosophical fit, and I know that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are really big on that, you're playing Kansas City again next year in the regular season, and you probably hope that you get to see him again in the Super Bowl next year if you're the 49ers. So you're going to want to collect as much intel as possible from Kansas City. And one of the ways to do that is through an interview process. Even if they don't hire somebody like Brandon Staley because he's a philosophical difference from what the 49ers are looking for, they can pick knowledge up from Brandon Staley and apply it to what they're doing next year. So, you know, people look at interviews in a very black and white fashion. They're like, oh, no, not another candidate from the outside who is a DB coach who, you know, might fit as poorly as Steve Wilks. That's not the point. The point is that you can collect intelligence from all these interviews, and whether or not David Merritt gets this job or not is irrelevant to me. I think the 49ers are in the business of making sure that they gather as much good information as possible because they're trying to get better so they can kick the door down next year. So candidates so far: Nick Sorensen, who's already on the 49ers staff, defensive assistant, he's interviewed. Daniel Bullock's DB's coach is interviewed. David Merritt, DB's coach of the Kansas City Chiefs under Steve Spagnuolo, has interviewed. And Brandon Staley, the former coordinator, DC of the Rams, and also the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, has interviewed. Now, I think that if you look at somebody like Brandon Staley, it's a big philosophical departure from what the 49ers are running defensively, and that makes it seem less likely than not that he'll be hired. But Lynch didn't rule it out yesterday. He said that Staley is good enough to adapt. The problem is the 49ers already asked somebody to adapt last year, and that was Steve Wilks, and I don't think it quite worked to their liking. So they may err more on the side of taking somebody that's already part of the family. Nick Sorensen is an interesting candidate for the 49ers because he's already been in the building for 1 year. He's a defensive assistant. And he's also a former special teams coordinator. So he obviously knows multiple parts of the ball. You look back on Nick Sorensen's playing career, he was a special teams ace for years in the NFL. Then he was on Seattle's staff to begin. But before that, at Virginia Tech, Nick Sorensen was actually a quarterback. And he actually was the player of a game in a big bowl game for Virginia Tech. And then he switched to safety his very next season. Why did he switch to safety? Because Michael Vick came to Virginia Tech and took over as the starter. So the predecessor to Michael Vick as QB at Virginia Tech was this 49ers defensive staffer, Nick Sorensen, and he has now interviewed to be their defensive coordinator. The reason I bring this up is because the 49ers love versatility. They love the fact that their tight ends coach, Brian Fleury, used to be a college quarterback and can see the game from the QB's perspective. Shanahan loves seeing everything from the QB's perspective. He thinks that's the engine of how football analysis works. And don't get me wrong, I think there is something appealing about the fact that Nick Sorensen came up as a quarterback, moved to safety, which can be considered the QB of the defense, and then also as a special teams ace throughout a fairly lengthy NFL career, and obviously has been a special teams coach in the NFL, now defensive assistant. Sorensen, by the way, they nickname him the Ball Father because he runs the meetings called The Ball, which focus on turnovers. They watch a lot of turnover, giveaway, takeaway tape, and tries to instill the importance of all that to the 49ers. So that's what's happened today. David Merritt added to that interview list. Hopefully I've supplied you with some new information. Those of you just joining, we're talking about Brock Purdy's Indianapolis connection because I just came from the basketball game where I saw Tyrese Halliburton win the game. I'm going to take a little break from talking and show you the big dunk delivered by the Pacers off of the Halliburton assist. Just like his good friend Brock Purdy, Halliburton is a good passer. There it was. Having a good time here. I'm eating some good food. I'm going to share all of it with you at some point. I think tomorrow. Show you what the combine is all about. Of course, met Big Dom. Went to a Pacers game. Ate good food. I'm getting what's rumored to be the best burger in Indianapolis tomorrow. So we'll continue the food documentation. Obviously, I've talked to John Lynch. Met Rich Eisen today. Obviously, I've been on Eisen's show already a couple times. So ran into him and Daniel Jeremiah in the hallway. It was awesome to speak with them. We're going to have more Rich Eisen show appearances coming up. Pat McAfee is here from Indianapolis. His show's not going this week, though. They're still taking some time off. So yeah, great to connect with everybody in a city that always hosts the NFL Combine and is always this really interesting NFL convention. So I'm going to turn this over to Q&A. The news today, or the 49ers defensive coordinator interviews, including the David Merritt edition. But I think that Q&A is something that will help us really process everything. And yes, I still think that the ideal candidate for the 49ers defensive coordinator position, if you could get him, would be Jeff Ulbrich. I'm just not sure how the 49ers get him without executing some sort of concession to the New York Jets. And, you know, one thing that's really, really, really interesting to me is that the 49ers might be in the market for a backup quarterback again, and the Jets may be looking to get a backup quarterback off of their hands, and that's Zach Wilson. Obviously a failed number 2 overall pick right ahead of Trey Lance, who was the failed number 3 overall pick in the 2021 draft. But if Ulbrich is to go back to the Bay Area where he's from, if the 49ers are going to get the defensive coordinator that seems to fit them best, they may have to do the Jets a favor. I mean, that's the only way that I see something like this working, because the New York Jets have no incentive, if they don't get anything back for it, to let go of Jeff Ulbrich, who's been one of the better defensive coordinators in football. In fact, the Jets' defensive DVOA under Ulbrich has improved every single season. They started as the worst defense in the league, and now they're up to number 3. That's why I call him the seemingly ideal candidate, but I think something else would have to happen. And, you know, I'm just thinking about the fact that the news came that the Jets are okay with trading Zach Wilson. In fact, it sounds like they probably want to trade him. I'm not sure if they even will be able to trade him, because he's a first-round pick, so he's got a guaranteed salary. And if the Jets do trade him, they can get away from some of that remaining contract, but another team would have to pick up a guaranteed deal for the last season over $5 million. I think something like $5.7 million. That being said, the 49ers were able to trade away Trey Lance to the Cowboys. They got a 4th-round pick in return for it. That was a hell of a return that the 49ers were able to get for Trey Lance, all things considered. This is a year later into the contract for Zach Wilson. And, I mean, the Pacers still are – why am I talking about the Pacers? I was just at the Pacers game. The Jets are, still in a position where they would have to eat a lot of money if they just cut Zach Wilson, or if he stayed on the roster and he didn't play and Aaron Rodgers was the starter in front of him. So they're probably looking for a team to do them a little bit of a solid, just like the Cowboys did the 49ers a solid and took Trey Lance out off of their hands. So we'll see if that factors into anything here, because Sam Darnold, they loved him, the 49ers did, but I think that he performed well enough, and he's been in that QB rehabilitation program. I mean, it's a image rehab program that the 49ers have for quarterbacks. I think that might get Sam Darnold, might earn him a shot elsewhere. And if the 49ers are really in the QB image rehab program, they got to bring in the next guy who's considered a bust. And maybe the natural successor to somebody like Sam Darnold would be Zach Wilson. Either way, the 49ers have a stud at the top, and that is Brock Purdy, who's got that connection here to Indianapolis, which means that all roads lead back to QB discussion in the NFL. All right, seriously now, I'm ready for the 49ers Q&A. I am waiting for good questions. Has David banned anyone tonight? Yesterday's accidental banning of Joey Nichols, I still apologize for that. No, nobody has been accidentally banned tonight. Mike says, post your questions. Dan Nelson is asking about Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup. I've already, talked about this. I think in all likelihood, the bridge has been burned. But if there is a minimum sort of deal, some kind of contract where the 49ers can really get away with any kind of cap hit, maybe a bridge can be recreated. But I just think from both sides, that relationship between Garoppolo and Shanahan probably ran its course, and the 49ers can move on to their next QB image rehab project. Assuming Sam Darnold doesn't come back next year. Go for Broke wants to see it. It would be good for traffic. I know that, but like website traffic, internet traffic, you don't know if it'd be good for traffic in the Bay Area. I do like Ike sandwiches. I know Ike actually personally. Good 49ers fan. Ike Shahada. Should the 49ers explore getting Joe Staley out of retirement? For what? I would hope to coach, not to play, right? If this is the play, then hell no. He retired for a reason. He's done. He doesn't want to play football anymore. Johnny Holland not on the interview list. Remember, Johnny Holland has been dealing with a health condition with the multiple myeloma over the past couple of years. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I do know that Johnny also loves coaching linebackers, kind of like Chris Kasarik loves coaching the defensive line. What sandwich do I get at Ike's? I get the Matt Cain. I love the Matt Cain. I think I add avocado to it too. The Matt Cain add avocado. It comes on Dutch Crunch from Ike's. Ike's is all over the country now. Amazing how quickly it's grown. That was originally in San Francisco. Ike started in the city. I still remember the first location over there on 16th and Sanchez. And congratulations to Ike. He's got a nationwide presence now with those sandwiches. A lot of them named after Bay Area sports figures. Any news about Drake Jackson? He's recovering from knee surgery. That's all the news I can give you. I think I've already given that news. What about Kirk Cousins rumors? To what team? Can't just ask me Kirk Cousins rumors without context. I don't know what else to say. Staley or Merritt, who'd be better as a defensive coordinator? Well, Staley's been a damn good defensive coordinator before, but you're also talking about the 49ers system and the 4-3, the wide 9. They want to keep a lot of what they've been running with a lot of cover 3. I know it's evolved past that. Staley runs a different defense. Staley, first off, it's a 3-4 front. I think that, Bosa would much rather just have his hand in the dirt rushing all the time. He doesn't want to be dropping back into coverage. So you have to ask the question, is Staley running the 49ers defense going to be better than somebody like David Merritt running the 49ers defense? He's coming from the Kansas City school of thought where they play a whole lot of man coverage in the secondary and then blitz a lot behind Steve Spagnuolo. So these are all philosophical discussions that the 49ers are having. And even if neither of these guys is selected as a defensive coordinator, they can take ideas from both of them because these interviews are intensive and these interviews should be thought-provoking, and they could take those ideas and apply it to their defense next year, regardless of who is the coordinator. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There is no chance that, although Joey had to do some dropping in the coverage under Brandon Staley and in well, you want to say San Diego, but with the Chargers. So that's the thing. Like Staley runs a 3-4. That's what people need to remember. It's a different scheme than the one the 49ers want to run. They've expressly said they want to stick with what works for them. So we can't get crazy here with some of the talks of schematic mismatches. And we have to remember that they have said that they think that Brandon Staley has the chops to adapt. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to pick him. What did D'Amico Ryan say about Greenlaw's injury? Well, D'Amico Ryan's tore 2 Achilles over the course of his career. So D'Amico, obviously, Dre's his guy. D'Amico very hurt by that as well. But I think D'Amico is somebody that can give Dre Greenlaw some encouragement throughout his rehabilitation process because D'Amico was able to overcome, especially that first Achilles tear in 2010. He was still a really good player even after that. No, the 49ers are not interested in Kirk Cousins. Why would they be? The 49ers already have an all-pro caliber quarterback in Brock Purdy. They have one of the best in the game in Brock Purdy. Why would they want Kirk Cousins? That would be a downgrade at this point for San Francisco. An expensive downgrade. They have Brock Purdy at $1 million per year. Do we understand that? Like Brock Purdy is one of the best quarterbacks in the game. There's no dispute amongst credible people that he's an elite quarterback, and he cost them $1 million this year. Why would they be interested in Kirk Cousins? Can't believe I'm answering questions like this. I don't know about the 49ers offensive staff right now. I'm focused on defensive coordinator. I think they're going to announce all the staff changes or additions at once they have the defensive coordinator in one fell swoop with a press release. So that's probably going to be coming maybe tomorrow, maybe Friday, maybe early next week. Shanahan has said that he wants to have the process for the DC job done by the end of this week. I am a little offended by the question. Brock Purdy was number one by every metric in the NFL this season. You watch the tape, and he's the most efficient quarterback by a mile in the NFL. He's clearly one of the best in the league if you know what playing the position means. Within the context of the 49ers system, he might be the very best guy, right? I mean, you look at what he did within the context of what Kyle Shanahan needed. He played really well even in the Super Bowl. He brought the 49ers from behind 17 points in the NFC Championship game. He delivered a game-winning drive in the clutch in the playoffs against the Packers. He ran the football. He threw deep at a historically high accuracy. I mean, 64% of his passes, deep passes, were complete. Brock Purdy, we had never seen a season that like the one that he just put on tape, and people are asking about Kirk Cousins to replace him. Are you kidding me? Like, let's live in reality here. Let's live in reality. And the reality is that Brock Purdy is the NFL's most valuable player, not by the title of the award, but just by the meaning of those words, because he's costing the 49ers only $1 million, and he's giving them all pro caliber football, period. That's all that we need to know here. That's all the data that needs to be contributed to discussion to shut out all Kirk Cousins rumors. There shouldn't be Kirk Cousins rumors when you have the top quarterback in football by every single efficiency metric playing on a deal of $1 million. Period. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, it's an offensive question at this point. Scott thinks the 49ers need to draft tackle help. I've always looked at this draft, and this is by always, I mean, for the past 2 years, I've looked at this 2024 draft as the draft for the 49ers might have to go tackle high because Trent Williams is 35. McKivitz is entering the second and final year of his contract, and he's not a great right tackle. You need to replenish the pipeline at that position, and it seems like one of the only sustainable ways to do that is through premium picks in the draft. It's really hard to acquire tackles by trade. The 49ers lucked into that with Trent Williams back in 2020. So you've got to replenish the tackle position, and you have to keep on building that interior line, especially the right side. We have not heard any reports of Mike Vrabel being an interviewee for the 49ers. Will there be a splash free agency signing this year? Stay tuned. I don't think the 49ers are even sure yet. I think they need to get a gauge of who's going to be available. I think that they're settling into their cap situation right now with the salary cap announced. They'll tell you what, the increase to $255.4 million makes it a much higher probability that there is. All right, guys, everybody, thanks for joining. It was a fun time here. The Purdy, Tyrese Halliburton connection in Indianapolis was alive and well today. One more time, we'll watch the big dunk off of the Tyrese Halliburton assist, and then we'll ride off into the night. That is Brock Purdy's old college buddy, Tyrese Halliburton, both out of Iowa State. Both have had such nice things to say about each other, both rising stars in their respective leagues. Halliburton in the NBA, Brock Purdy in the NFL. So that's my report today from Indianapolis. Much more coming here from the NFL Combine. We covered what? Defensive coordinator, Brock Purdy, Indianapolis food, a new basketball arena right across the street. Oh, and we talked about some Kirk Cousins rumors. So I don't even know. I haven't even seen those, but I'm guessing that they exist. They shouldn't exist because Brock Purdy is damn good. Bottom line, end of story. We'll talk to you all very soon.